Welcome to Benefits Insider. I'm your host, Chris Hamilton, and today I want to share with you one of the biggest keys to saving over $1 million in your health insurance budget. In fact, this is one of probably, I think, the most foundational aspects to determining whether or not you're going to have success or not. And it's one of the things I think you should be thinking about as your benefits renewal approaches. And that is the mindset of the decision making. And let me explain to you what I mean by that. I've worked with dozens of employers that have had great success lowering the rising cost of health insurance and increasing their profitability. And as I think about those that were really successful doing it and those that were not, it came down to really three key attributes that I noticed. And I'll just give them to you really quick because I want to show you the math of how this is actually done. The first thing I noticed is that they seem to be entrepreneurial and willing to think outside of the box. They took some risk starting a business or buying it or continuing to run a business. They chose to work for themselves or a mid-sized company and not some Fortune 500 collecting a paycheck. They understand the trade-off between risk and reward. A little risk isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially if it can lead to outsized returns. And the third thing, and I think this is vitally important, and I think is one of the biggest differentiators, is that they got involved and engaged early in the benefits renewal process in the strategy setting, when strategy was being set. Oftentimes we see companies delegating this solely to HR. And while HR is vitally important in the success of a benefits program, if you think about it, they've got different skills, training, and incentives. Those three things are very different than you as a CFO or you as a business owner. And we find the best practices, all three of those coming together early in the strategy, because think about strategy and vision setting as this funnel. And as decisions get made, the funnel gets narrower and narrower. And so when an owner gets involved at the end, this is kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, at the end, they're usually presented with, here's the options A or B. But really, there was probably A through F options available to begin with, but they didn't see them because they weren't involved early in the strategy when the options were wide. And therefore, some of the options that would have really been appealing to them were wiped off of the board and then never to be heard of. And so this leads to my point today that one of the big factors we see as a driving success factor is that the executives that are looking at their employee benefit spend over multi-years, they're not making a one-year decision, they're making a 10-year decision. And over the course of those 10 years, all those decisions add up to a very large sum of money. And I want to share with you the math here, assuming a company with 100 employees. I just wanted to use a round number. Maybe you've got 50, maybe you've got 200 employees in your company, but the point's made here. When you look back at health insurance inflation, and depending on the data that you're looking at, whether it's Kaiser Family Foundation, there's a number of them out there, but typically you're going to see inflation numbers anywhere between 8 and 20% or 8 and 15%. And so some years your health insurance premium might increase by 2% or maybe it's zero. I know the last several years with COVID, there was a period where a lot of companies were getting rate passes. But you also have that offset in other years that you're getting a 15, 20, 30. I mean, we've seen them even higher than that sometimes. So the question I always ask owners and CFOs is, okay, great. You got a 2% last year. What was it the year prior and the year before that and the year before that? And oftentimes when you sit down with your broker, they're showing you only what was your health insurance premium last year and how much is it going up this year. Very rarely is somebody sitting down to show you what your performance has been over the last 5, 7, or 10 years. And when we show that to business owners, it's often eye-popping. And the math oftentimes is similar to this. Now, the numbers I'm showing you here, these are three different assumptions. It's gross premium. So you are payroll deducting some of these costs already from your employees. So this isn't the net employer cost, but this is just the gross. And most employers, they're payroll deducting 30, 35% roughly. Some of your payroll deducting less, but the directional math is the same. And so what you can see as you look at this over the course of 5 and 10 years, then the dollars add up to very substantial amounts. If you average a 10% increase over that period, it's almost $16 million. And if it's 15% average increase over that time period, it's $20 million. And so the point that I want to make is incremental reductions in that trend or that annual inflation rate can have a massive difference in the outcome to your organization. So compare that to the 5% trend. And I always like to use this particular number because clients that are moving outside of the traditional fully insured models into some of the plans that we use aren't seeing 10, 15% average increases in their premiums. I mean, we have a lot of clients that have negative reductions in their costs. I'll give you an example. Our employee benefits costs or medical costs went down negative 15% this last year. I'm meeting with a client tomorrow. Theirs is going down over 26% year over year. So think about the impact that can have in subsequent years when you're thinking about the aggregate math here. In this particular example, going from 15% average increases over 10 years to 5% generates more than $7 million in savings, or more than $700,000 a year in annual savings. That's money that goes back into your pocket, can generate profitability to you. It's money that can be reinvested into the business, hiring people, acquiring, investing in technology, those sorts of things. There's a lot of assumptions that are made in the math. Yes, a lot of you are not experiencing this for a number of reasons. Maybe you're increasing deductibles, or you're increasing out of pockets, watering down the benefits to reduce those premiums. But eventually, you're going to get to a point where there's only so far you can water benefits down for costs. Maybe you have increased employee costs. That has other downstream effects. It affects your participation. It affects employee morale. Eventually, you're going to hit affordability limits where you're no longer able to continue increasing costs to employees. And then when that happens, unfortunately, we see some companies where members begin dropping off of the plan. Companies have participation issues, and then that sets them off into what we call this death spiral, if you will. So the reason I bring that up is because those are some of the things that people don't necessarily think about, those downstream implications, when they're just looking at year over year versus what has it been and what direction is it going. So the entire point that I want to make by sharing this with you is companies, particularly those that are mid-size, you're probably fully insured. And there's a number of reasons, which I'm going to explain in subsequent episodes, how this is not in your financial best interest. It benefits the insurance companies. You can look at the ones that are publicly traded. They're releasing blockbuster earnings, increases in share prices, and they're getting the money from you and your employees. You're usually paying more, getting less. Your employees are doing the same. And so getting involved, thinking about this as a multi-year decision, and getting involved early in the process as strategy is being set would help you understand your options, whether it's partially self-funding, using a group health captive, understanding pharmacy spend and how to reduce that dramatically, understanding the options you have available to you and fully vetting them out so that you understand what your alternatives are that can generate lower increases or even reductions, adding profitability back to your company, increasing your valuations, and also helping employees at the same time. I'm gonna preface and explain to you in another episode what our benefits look like. But imagine in your company having lower costs, being able to reduce premium costs to your employees, and giving them the ability to access healthcare. That's high cost medications, surgeries, all sorts of expensive things that would normally hit their deductible, being able to do that for free to them, where they pay no out-of-pocket costs. When you your health plan the right way, and your buying's at such a low cost compared to what you're doing today, you can save so much money that you can give away healthcare to your employees. And that is ultimately what companies like yours are asking us for. How do I make my benefits more competitive where they're not a detriment, and I can now compete with larger national employers that have bigger budgets and better benefits today? How can I compete with that? And the goal of our consulting practice is to show you not only how to match their benefits, how to get better benefits and lower your costs at the same time. If you're interested in what this might look like for your business, check out my website. I'm giving away the playbook that we use when consulting with our clients. It'll help you understand the 3 facets of the strategy. And on that website, I've got a cost estimator. You can plug in the number of employees that you've got. It'll give you an idea of how much money you could save in the first year. And it's just a really good resource with testimonials and case studies that would be helpful to you. And in the meantime, if you've got questions, feel free to send me a note. I'm on a mission to help fix healthcare for mid-sized businesses like yours and mine. Use these strategies to put more profitability to your bottom line and more money in your employees' paychecks. Until next time.